Hello everybody and welcome to Ask the CEO with Avrohom Gottheil. Today's episode features an interview that I did with Reuben Dreiblatt, the editor-in-chief at Faveeo in New York City. I was interviewed on many cool topics such as 5G, IoT, the future of artificial intelligence, hacks and ransomware, cybersecurity, and data privacy. We had a lot of fun in this conversation. Let's check it out.
First question, how do you see the 5G rollout affecting the Internet of Things? Will older devices still function despite some devices pushing more data at a faster rate?
Sure, yeah. So if we take a look at the last few years, the rollout of IoT devices, you'll notice a slow and steady progression. In 2016, so taking the last 4 years, we started out with 6.3 billion IoT devices. 2017, we moved up to 8.
Okay.
2018, 11, and then this year, 2020, there's a projection of 20 billion IoT devices.
Wow.
And these numbers keep changing depending on which which company releases those numbers. But the point is, there's a nice slow and steady progression. 5G is going to change that. It's going to enable a massive scale of IoT devices. So we're going to see lots more IoT devices being deployed much quicker in many more places. And it's going to enable many different applications everywhere from smart cities to healthcare. I had the opportunity to interview Inma Rodriguez from Ericsson on my show, Ask the CEO. Inma is Ericsson's head for the European and Latin American market area. And we had this conversation about 5G and what it's going to enable us and what's the rollout going to look like.
Right.
So if you take a look, what our discussion was, if you take a look at the evolution of mobile broadband, the 2G, 3G, 4G.
Right.
First you had texting, you're able to send a text.
Right.
Unfortunately, I think we're all still there.
Yeah.
Then we went to emails and web browsing, and then we went to watching movies on our phones.
Streaming, sure.
5G is going to be more than just an evolution. It's going to be more than just another G. It's going to be exponential. I mean, let's talk about applications such as smart cities. Autonomous vehicles are a big topic, right?
Sure.
One of the things it's going to enable is that connected infrastructure.
Right.
So as we human drivers, we operate our vehicles, we interact with everything, with the whole environment around us. We're looking at a distance, at the traffic light 6 blocks away to know how fast we can go in order to get that yellow light to get past there. We see that idiot that's about to cut us off and all sorts of things. We're interacting with the whole environment. We could see black ice on the road if we're paying attention and we know to slow down and so on. Autonomous vehicles today are relying on radar and optical technology in order to be able to drive safely, but that connection to the infrastructure is still lacking. 5G technology is going to enable that. The road is going to tell the vehicle, hey, there's ice on me, reduce speed. And same thing, the traffic lights, the intersections. And that's going to make not just autonomous vehicles, but even the human-driven vehicles much safer. And that's just one application.
Right.
Healthcare is another one. So TeleHealth is a big deal.
Sure.
It's not a new technology. We've been using telehealth for quite a number of years, but it's expanding. 5G is going to enable telehealth to expand to allow doctors to do life-saving surgeries for people in developing countries that don't have access to medical care through robots. There was a story recently, an astronaut on the International Space Station needed some medical care.
Really?
And a doctor from Earth was providing assistance on the phone.
Wow. I didn't hear about that.
We're going to Mars. Elon Musk, I don't know if he's sending a hospital to Mars. Elon, if you're listening, you may want to do that.
Yeah.
But I'm sure Elon is going to send a medical robot. Right, Elon?
Yeah.
And I don't know if 5G will enable us to perform surgery on Mars from Earth, but it's that idea that low latency, high bandwidth, that ubiquitous connectivity that's going to enable so many applications like this. So we're going to see the rollout of IoT increasing exponentially. Now, in terms of your question about older technology,
Right. How does that factor in?
Yeah.
Generally, when we see improvements in a field, sometimes there's the lag behind of older devices. Not always a device, but can cause a delay in adaptation to the newer model.
Yeah. So I come from the telecom world.
Sure.
And it's interesting when the companies I worked for, we had these marketing presentations. They always presented the solution in a pristine environment. Everything's brand new. Rip out the old, in with the new.
Sure.
But as you know, in the real world, it doesn't work that way.
Of course
you
not,
have a hodgepodge, jury-rigged, duct-taped solution of old technology working together with new technology.
Absolutely.
And that's how it's going to be like in post-5G world. So just to give you an idea, if we look at some of the European telecom carriers, Swisscom out of Switzerland is going to maintain their 2G network until January 1st, 2021.
Okay.
So we are still going to be using 2G in conjunction with 5G. T-Mobile, we all know T-Mobile is. Same time, December 31st, 2020. So they still got 2G.
Right.
Even better, Norway, Telnor out of Norway, they're keeping 2G till December 31st, 2025.
Wow.
So I think that 4G is going to be around, when we still have 6G.
Right.
It's going to be around for a while.
For a while.
Just like 5G won't be an evolution in terms of technology, but in terms of the adoption, there is going to be an evolution. We've all invested lots of money in this infrastructure, and it's not practical to rip everything out.
Definitely not, especially if the next G is around the corner. In a couple of years, it's like we spent all this money adopting to this one, and now there's a new one.
Exactly. Just an interesting thing. About just going back to what we just discussed about the rollout of IoT and how 5G will influence that. 5G will also influence another aspect of IoT. It'll influence the manufacturing of IoT. And what I mean by that is we also need to look at a second set of statistics that are in parallel to the IoT rollout. So if we look at the same time period from 2016 through today, we need to look at the numbers of records exposed during data breaches. Because we're adding devices onto our networks, we're getting hacked.
Right.
Unlike IoT rollout, which was slow and steady year over year, data breaches have been exponential.
Absolutely.
2016 we were at 36 million records exposed. As if that was bad enough, 2017 went up to 197 million. Then it jumped to 446 million in 2018. 2019 was a disaster, tenfold. It jumped tenfold to 4 billion. This year, people are still hung over from New Year's. I mean, we're literally 2 weeks into a new decade, and Honda was just breached, and we've got 1 billion records down the drain.
Oh my God.
So, it's getting better and better. We're adding, I saw a statistic, we're adding 127 connected devices per second.
127.
Either per second or minute. I'm sorry.
Still,
that's a lot. I was getting a little excited. Per minute. Let's
sure, we'll tone it down.
But that's a lot.
Right, that's a ton.
And not to say that IoT is the cause of data breach, but let's face facts. An IoT device is an entry point to your network.
Makes us vulnerable.
It makes us vulnerable. It can be a hopping point to our network.
Definitely.
And then from there, hackers have full reign. So if we're, let's take a smart factory. The industrial IoT is especially vulnerable because they have hundreds of thousands of devices on their network. So could you imagine we're adding hundreds of thousands of devices. We've got to guard every single one of them.
It's a huge problem.
Yeah, right? The hackers need to get into one. One door. We need to guard hundreds of thousands of doors.
Yeah.
Now, let's say we have super secure technology. I mean, Fort Knox, right? You cannot get in.
Sure.
The day you deploy that device, it's already vulnerable. Because we both know in 6 months from now there'll be new technology that'll be developed. And because of that new technology, now this is obsolete technology and it's vulnerable.
Right.
So how do you protect devices against threats that don't even exist? And the answer is you do it the way we've done it traditionally, that is through patching devices. Well, that's very nice, but we can't even get our Windows servers patched. Okay.
Sorry. Yeah, we'll cut that out in post. Yeah.
So we can't even get our Windows servers patched properly, right? How are we going to patch, 600,000 IoT devices? And you know what it's like to do that manually? How many patches have people downloaded from the internet that have been infected?
So many.
So you've got a secure device, super secure, nothing can get in. You upload a patch, boom, you just gave the keys to your company to a hacker. So what we're going to see as part of the manufacturing process of IoT is a full lifecycle automated patch management solution that utilizes AI to automatically push those patches, download them from secure places, and patch each IoT device as required without the manual human intervention. So these are the kinds of things that we're going to see as time goes on in a post-5G world.
Do you think that would those patches be able to stop somebody who's putting in, an actual piece of hardware that's acting as the hack?
That's a great question. I actually speak with several cybersecurity experts about that. One of them is a good colleague of mine. His name is Scott Schober. He just wrote a book called Cybersecurity is Everybody's Business. I encourage everybody to read that. His company, Berkeley Veritronic Systems, based out of Metuchen, New Jersey, specializes in that kind of threat detection. So that would require a different methodology because software, can guard against software and maybe to some extent hardware, but sometimes that chip bypasses the OS, bypasses everything, and we need a different kind of protection for that.
Absolutely. The hardware level is very vulnerable. I spoke to a cybersecurity expert for a previous idea he's based out of Israel, and he runs a cybersecurity company called Faveeo Systems, which is focused on the hardware level and really, doing something to mitigate these rogue USB devices that somebody might put in, or Raspberry Pi in a massive manufacturing plant. I mean, there's, we're all scanning on the software level, and one employee, puts one thing in because they were trained by some, outside source who only wants to do harm. But it is encouraging, though. It does seem like there's a lot of promise with 5G, a lot of promise with these new rollouts. We definitely have to keep in mind the cybersecurity concerns, and how do we mitigate that? How do we not, for the sake of progress, how do we not leave ourselves more vulnerable in other areas?
Exactly.
Okay. On another question, different note, switching topics a little bit. What excites you most about the future of AI, and what do you fear in turn with that?
Yeah, so there are lots of exciting applications coming out for with AI.
Right.
Just dovetailing on cybersecurity. 5G is going to be a game changer for cyber. We're going to need AI, just like we finished off now. We're going to need AI because it's just going to be physically impossible to keep track of everything.
Sure.
In terms of some cool technology coming out, we've got smart cities, and there's a technology called NLP, known as natural language processing, which uses AI in order to understand what it is we're saying.
Right.
So imagine walking down the street, New York City, when it's finally smart, and just speaking. We're not even gonna need our Bluetooth anymore. We're just speaking to the nearest lamppost. Hey, how many seats are on the M48? And it's going to know through AI. It's going to be able to tell you how many seats. Or here's another interesting application. Smart cameras are becoming very big. They are very big, and smart cameras can actually be used for applications such as detecting bacteria levels on food. So we'll be able to query our smart cameras and say, hey, how does the cabbage look on, on the supermarket there?
Is this chicken still good?
Yeah, exactly. When is that milk going to spoil? Because my gosh, I buy a bottle of milk and a day later it's spoiled.
July 3rd.
Stuff like that. But you know what? Those are what I call utilitarian. They're cool technology, but that doesn't excite me. I just threw that in there because those are exciting technologies. What really excites me is a technology called conversational commerce.
Conversational commerce.
Now, like the name implies, conversational commerce refers to when somebody interacts with a business. Could be on a messenger application, like send a text,
sure.
WhatsApp,
sure.
Or a voice assistant. So Alexa is becoming big, Siri, maybe Neon, the new artificial virtual human.
Right.
You're leveraging one of these channels to interact with a business. Let's give an example. We just complained about milk spoiling, right?
Yes.
So we've got these smart fridges.
Right.
We walk into our kitchen and go, hey, fridge, how much milk do we have left? And if it's programmed with a snarky AI attitude, it'll respond back, yo, boss, the rate you're guzzling it, it'll be gone in an hour. But, when it detects you're getting a little bit irritated, but I can order a new bottle right now and it'll be here in an hour on a drone. All right, so this is real technology.
Right, absolutely.
And here's another one, even more exciting. So you like coffee?
Big fan.
You love drinking it, right?
Love it.
What about when you run out of those K-cups? You like restocking that?
It's not the most fun.
Not the most fun, right? So imagine on a tired morning, you're groggy, you've got a busy day ahead of you, you walk up to your coffee maker, hey, coffee maker, make me a coffee.
Right.
Now your coffee maker can detect by the inflection in your voice that you're not in the best of moods.
Right.
It knows by looking at your calendar, you've got a jam-packed day today, and it knows by your wearable that you didn't have much sleep.
Wow.
It's going to make you a double espresso.
Sure.
Right? It knows exactly what to make you.
Sure.
Now, as it's brewing away, it goes, by the way, I hate to tell you this, but your teenagers had a party last night and they drank up all the coffee. This is your last one. I can get you one at Amazon. They're on sale now for $2 off, and we'll have it in an hour on a drone. Should I order it? Yes. Okay, boom. That transaction was taken care of. So this kind of technology is going to enable people to benefit from technology like AI without having to deal with hassles. People are busy enough in their lives. They don't have to worry about whether or not you have coffee.
Right.
But if you ask me if that excites me, I would say no.
That's not enough for you.
That's not enough excitement for me. I need that espresso.
Okay, sure. So what really excites
me? This technology excites me, but that's not why.
Right.
So we're all entrepreneurs.
Sure.
And as you know, and by being an entrepreneur and speaking with entrepreneurs, what keeps us up at night? Trying to get that cash flow, right? That stream of reoccurring revenue.
Right.
That's the hardest. That's why so many businesses fail. Whether you're an entrepreneur or even an established business, there are peaks and valleys in the business. And sometimes those valleys get longer and deeper than the peaks. So you have a company, and let's just pick on a smart coffee maker manufacturer, Miele.
Sure.
They're a prominent manufacturer. They make these items, these novelty items, a smart coffee maker. And they might be hot today, but let's say there's a war in the Middle East, and suddenly the economy is not doing so well, and people aren't buying those coffee makers.
Right.
What's Miele going to do, right? It just invested so much R&D, so much resources into this coffee maker, and nobody wants them.
Send it to the troops,
right?
Yeah.
How is it going to keep that cash flow going? Because it's business, and it does. Miele does other things too. But I'm just picking on the coffee maker business, right? How are you going to take this transaction and make it work for you? And that's really where the excitement of conversational commerce comes in. As you know, one of the best ways to make recurring revenue is through affiliate sales. You sell something for someone. If something is a consumable, then there's a recurring stream of revenue.
Right.
So this coffee maker, by virtue of the fact that it was linked to Amazon's network, it became an affiliate sales partner of Amazon. Now, this is a fictional story. I really don't know what Miele's doing, and I don't know what Amazon's doing.
Right.
I don't I study the trends.
Right.
But
I understand.
assuming, and Miele, if you do that, I want credit. Assuming that that's what they're doing.
Right.
Every time you order those K-Cups, Miele gets a piece of the action.
Sure.
So by leveraging AI, by leveraging that right technology, you just turned a single transaction into a new stream of recurring revenue, and that's what excites me. So that's what excites me about AI. What do I fear?
What do you fear?
All right. Contrary to popular opinion, I don't fear an AI Armageddon, an army of robots hell-bent on taking over the earth and enslaving humans. I don't think
Seems like a popular point of view as people like to preach, but yes.
I don't think it's going to happen in our lifetimes, maybe not even our children's lifetimes.
Hope not.
Right? I'm more concerned about the human elements of AI, the crime, the stuff we talked about, cybersecurity, hacks, ransomware. We've got hospitals that are turning away patients because some jerk locked up their computer systems. Whether it's for national interest, whether it's a politically motivated, whether it's motivated for personal gain, the fact is that we are living in a society today where we are extremely vulnerable. Our governments are being shut down, whole cities are being affected. Our financial institutions, TravelX was just hacked, and they were just locked down by ransomware. So, we have our very own homegrown, our fellow humans, our brothers and sisters are leveraging AI to cause us harm. And it's this kind of utilization, this kind of application of AI that I fear, because it can go even worse than it is today. We all have wearables, we've got genomics that are on the internet. Our biological information is basically in network somewhere.
It's out there.
Now, it is not so far-fetched to say that some hostile nation state might want to construct a biological weapon to wipe out a specific ethnic group. This is the kind of thing that fears me. The security or lack of security, where we're getting hacked. And I mean, there was just a major hack of a biometric powerhouse, Suprema. We're talking about biometrics being the next greatest thing in terms of security, not needing to have a password, face lock.
Fingerprint, face.
Well, guess what? Your fingerprint and face scan is out there on the dark web today. So, and unlike a password, which could be easily changed, this stuff...
This can't be changed.
Unless you do plastic surgery, and there are some that do, but we're not talking about that.
Yeah.
You're kind of stuck. So right there in its infancy, we've already gotten a blow on that. So this kind of stuff, this is what I fear from AI technology.
So how do we mitigate those concerns? Can we use the positive elements of AI to prevent against these elements that make us so nervous, especially for the future, for our children, for things that we can't change, like the biometrics,
Yeah. I just, I was recently in India. I gave a keynote on this topic. And the way I presented it is pretty much the way you did, where, we have a war of machines, basically. I didn't use those words exactly, but essentially that's what it's become. The bad guys have AI, the good guys need AI to balance that. But here's the thing, if you look at the market statistics, within the next 2 or 3 years, there are going to be 3.5 million unfilled cybersecurity jobs. Now, we've got the best and brightest minds on the market. We've got the best tools. Our networks are secure. We've got AI coming out of our ears. But the one thing we don't have are people. And not only that, we don't have all of the right people. What I mean by that is, the hackers have no problem recruiting people that take care of their needs.
Yes.
right? If you look at the statistics, only about 24% of the cybersecurity workforce is made up of women. The cybersecurity workforce is mainly white male. So we're pretty much all thinking the same way. We need to think differently. We need women's perspectives. We need minorities. We need to have a good representation of everyone, different perspectives, people thinking differently, coming up with new ideas. So this topic of diversity and inclusion is a big part of it. I just recorded a podcast on that this past week on diversity and inclusion and why it's so important. But if we look at why is it that only 24% of the cyber workforce is made up of women, so I dug a little deeper. Alan Paller, who is the chairperson of the SANS Institute, he noticed that when he stepped into a high school Cisco networking class, it would typically be 30 boys and 1 girl. Subliminally, these girls are getting the message, you're not wanted. We don't want you. This is not for girls.
Right.
Even funnier, so the person I interviewed, Deborah Rue, who is the CEO of Rue Global Impact, she actually educates businesses on diversity and inclusion. She told me a story about Mattel, the Barbie manufacturer.
Yeah, sure.
They programmed a Barbie with AI to speak to girls about career choices.
Oh boy.
And, the girl goes over to the robot Barbie.
Sure.
And Barbie says, hey, little girl, what do you want to be when you grow up? Oh, I want to be a computer scientist. And Barbie says to her, have you ever thought about a career in fashion?
Oh my God.
Now, after this happened a couple of times,
I'm cringing on the inside.
They did some research into it, and it turns out that the AI was programmed, no surprise there, by white males.
By men, yes. That sounds
so,
right.
We're taking the same bias and we're programming that into AI. So again, we need that girl to be that computer scientist.
Absolutely.
We need more women.
Definitely.
And that is the only way that we are going to get ahead of the game. That's how we're going to keep ourselves secure, by hiring. But we can't just hire women. We have to encourage them. We have to inspire them and lead by example and show them that cybersecurity or any high-tech, AI, computer science is a career where you will find fulfillment and you can make a difference in the world. And that way, we as a society will benefit.
Absolutely. Do you think is there a strategy you have in mind to encourage people to go forward in this industry, to fill that gap of jobs? Is there... How do we encourage? Is it just, this is a nice paying job, or this is very well respected, or you could have a long career? I mean, those seem like the normal ways we try to encourage people.
Right.
Maybe do we need a societal shift? What do we do with that?
Well, part of it is really, it's subliminally. It's subliminal because the girls are ingrained with the message that cybersecurity is not for them. It's not a girl job. And that's the part that needs to change. It has to come from us. It has to come from industry leaders giving presentations about that. One of my colleagues, her name is Tyler Cohen-Wood. She's a 20-year or 18-plus year veteran of cyber intelligence and forensics. She worked for the Department of Defense, the CIA. Pretty cool stuff in her career. And she's actually working on a conference geared towards girls called Cyber Girl Power. And this is basically going to be a conference where girls will hear speeches and presentations and get to play with the technology and get a feel for themselves that, hey, I can do this. This is for me. And we need more people like that.
Right. Definitely.
I'll just tell you a personal story that happened. Sure. So I have a son. So this is not with a girl, but same thing. I have a son. He just turned 13. So in the Jewish religion, he was bar mitzvah.
Bar mitzvah. Congratulations.
Thank you. Big time in his life. And in honor of this momentous occasion, I took him to Israel in the summer.
Very nice.
And I'm very active in the cybersecurity community, so I took along some light reading. I took along Scott Schober's book, the one we mentioned.
Yes.
Cybersecurity is everybody's business.
You handed to him?
I had it with me.
Okay.
And then, one evening I'm doing something, and my son, so he was 12 at the time, he comes over to me and he starts spouting insights about cybersecurity. And I'm looking at him like, say what? I mean, I don't really talk shop with my kids.
Right.
So I asked him, like, where on earth did you get this from? And he goes, from your book. And I said, which book? And he goes, the one you left on the dresser. And I said, oh, you read Scott's book. So what did I do? Because I interview industry leaders all day long, I grabbed my phone. I said, hey, come over here, kid. And, we did a quick impromptu interview. I asked him to share what he knows.
Sure.
And I posted it on Twitter as a book review for Scott Schober.
That's awesome.
Within a short period of time, I had 1,400 views. Next thing I know, we get a gift in the mail from Scott Schober. He sent it to my son. It was actually a cute little puzzle that was of the puzzle of the book cover, the cover of the book. And a thank you letter to my son, autographed by the author. Thank you for the review. Something to the effect of, there are great things in cyber. Basically encouraging him to continue along in cybersecurity. So when stuff like this happens, when a young child takes an interest in a high-tech field and puts his name out there and says something, and then to have an industry leader give this child encouragement, that's huge. That's how we're going to get them interested in this field, and that's how we're going to solve that problem of keeping us safe.
I hope there's more people like Scott in this world.
Absolutely.
We're counting on Scott. We're counting on your friend Tyler.
Yes.
Tyler Cohenwood.
Yes.
I think she may have connected with me on LinkedIn, so I'm excited. Maybe I'll talk to her about this initiative. It is very interesting, and I definitely agree with you. We need more diversity. That will be the way we can mitigate some of these problems, like what we see at Mattel. So cringy. That moving forward, will AI create more jobs than it destroys? I know we touched upon that a little bit, so you don't.
No, I love that question. I get asked that all the time because it's a concern that people have.
Big concern people have. Yeah.
So the short answer is, and then we'll expand that a little bit.
Sure.
There's going to be a shifting of jobs.
Definitely.
Jobs will be lost and jobs will be created. There's going to be a net, and I feel there's going to be a net gain.
Okay.
There's going to be some pain.
Definitely.
Right.
Definitely.
But if you think about it, this disruption, because that's really what it is. It's disruption. It's nothing new. In the 1850s, with the Industrial Revolution, the steam engine.
Yes.
That already disrupted jobs.
Definitely.
Unless you're in Midtown Manhattan, you're not going to see too many horse-drawn chariots. And the only ones you see in Midtown Manhattan are like $10 a minute or something like that.
Very expensive.
Right? There aren't any jobs available for horse-drawn chariots.
Yes.
I don't think too many people are crying over it.
Yes.
But at the time,
right,
it was very painful.
Right.
Now we have taxi drivers, and the taxi drivers are going to be disrupted.
Right.
But again, it's part of the progress. A friend of mine shared with me a great analogy when you think about this. Mm-hmm. You have a bank. Bank has a manager and, let's say, 8 tellers.
Sure.
The bank decides to go all AI. The manager keeps his job. They get AI tellers.
Right.
All the tellers are gone.
Right.
Now, if you look at it just from a very narrow perspective, these 8 tellers just lost their job.
Right.
Right. What's going to be with them? But if you look at the big picture, this AI now enables the bank to save money and open up 8 more branches. Those 8 branches are going to need managers. Now, where are you going to get somebody that has experience working at a bank?
Right.
Why these 8 tellers can be upskilled and they can be placed as managers in the bank because they know the business. And guess what? Last time I checked, a manager gets paid way more than a teller. Just a simple example. We're able to serve more people, and the people themselves are able to actually have better jobs because of that. But you have to be willing to educate yourself. Right. And that's really the second half of my soapbox there. Manual labor has no value. It's something that I learned as part of my evolution into entrepreneurship. Right. I was disrupted out of my industry. Many people were disrupted over the last several years, with these new technologies coming out very quickly. And what you very quickly realize is that doing things has no value because things can be done better, faster, and cheaper by other means, whether it's through people in other countries, whether it's through machines. The point is that doing things will not help you. What you need to do is you need to look inside yourself and leverage that part of yourself that is unique, that cannot be disrupted, and leverage that to deliver value to others, because that value will never be disrupted. And it was a hard lesson. It sounds a lot simpler than it is. This is an evolution, and we need to educate ourselves. If you don't know, but I sell fruit on the street. What can a guy like me do? Well, you can do lots of things. You have to broaden your horizon. The first thing I would recommend: speak to friends, find out what people are doing. Maybe your circle of friends need to be upgraded. If you're hanging out with a bunch of buddies at the bar all day long, well, maybe look for other friends. But you have to broaden your horizons. That was the biggest lesson that I learned. Speak to people. I started off speaking with entrepreneurs every day, and I speak with executives and industry leaders every day, and I learn from them. And I'm evolving, and we're all evolving. Everybody in my circle is evolving because we're educating ourselves. So it's not a matter of whether or not our job is going to disappear. It's really about making yourself invulnerable to disruption. And we each possess that capability. We just need to work at it, and we need to actually put in the effort and make it happen.
That is motivational. I feel supercharged.
Yeah, right.
I like that. I do think you are onto something. I guess I would say similarly with our conversation with 5G and rollout, with adoption for to new jobs, it will always be a little bit slow, right? Manual labor right now, agreed, it is losing its value, but we still do need people to pick our fruits and vegetables.
It's going to be that evolution,
right? It will be that similar evolution. It will be slower in certain ways, and then people will catch up and the speed, and then we'll come to the next wave, and the robots will take over.
Yeah,
hopefully not. Okay. Last question for you here. I know you have a big meeting in Midtown, so I don't want to take up too much more of your time, but this is an interesting one. This is about privacy. It's something I've asked a few other people before. I'm trying to get different perspectives on it because I've found that a lot of people maybe either aren't so sure how they feel about their own privacy, or are very adamant that we need to feel like we need to be protecting this. So I'm curious to hear your thoughts on this. And the question is there a consensus on the importance of privacy these days? I've seen more and more people my age especially, they're willing to give out a lot of private information to big corporations for the sake of convenience. Social media comes to mind, but plenty of other, Apple biometric technology, right, to log into your phone 2 milliseconds faster. So people are willing to give out a lot of private information, a lot of stuff that could be easily hackable for the sake of convenience. Will the growing industry around data change this privacy? Should people care more about their privacy?
Yeah, that's a great question. You hit it right on the head.
Thank you.
I myself, unfortunately, also use some of these technologies, and it's a part of daily life. You can't crawl under a rock. We have to live in the real world. In the real world, Yeah, I mean, your data is out there. You have, you either have to give up your fingerprint or face scan to log into your iPhone, or you have to enter your ridiculous cumbersome password every single time your phone locks and it buzzes to see an email. So it's a balance. Interesting thing, talking about Scott Schober again, he mentions that in his book, and he talks about the different ecosystems of technologies, and he mentions Apple as being the most secure. He vouches for iOS as being the safest. Not to say that it can't be hacked.
Right.
Everything could be hacked, but in terms of what's more likely to be secure and keep your data secure. Right. So that's just a side note in terms of whether or not someone's trying to make a decision about what platform to use.
Right. Apple is
Apple is king.
Right.
Today.
Certainly.
Today, things can change.
Definitely.
But on a more general level, what do we do? Is there a consensus? People are becoming more educated. By us having conversations like this, by people becoming victims to identity theft. I just had a colleague of mine get their Twitter account hacked. And that can be devastating, especially if you spend the last 10 years building up a business, building up a brand on Twitter. Yeah. And that's just one thing, right? I mean, identity theft is serious. And like I mentioned, now we're going to have our biometric data, genomic data, everything's going online.
It's all out there.
For that, we also, besides being smart and knowing, where to go and what products to use, we also need legislation.
Definitely.
Because we need to hold companies accountable. So we all know about GDPR. That was passed in Europe a few years ago.
What does that stand for?
General Data Protection Legislation.
Okay.
Or regulation. I'm sorry.
It's okay.
And that protects European citizens for data privacy. And then the California Consumer Protection Act, which just went into effect January 1st, 2020. And 12 other states joined them in 2018 to propose all kinds of legislation around consumer protection, and there's more being proposed on a regular basis. So more government entities are coming on board with requirements for legislation because we realize that this is a fact of life and we cannot allow it to be the Wild West. Just let everybody do whatever they please.
Too much at stake.
Yeah, there's too much at stake. We need to safeguard people's data. At the same time, though, it is, like the American Constitution, it's we the people that choose who we do business with. And that is a very important factor here. Because ultimately, now that we're becoming educated consumers, if companies don't treat our data properly, if you allow your employees to walk around with laptops with flat files of 7 million customers, social security numbers and birth dates on the laptop and then get it stolen, that's a problem. And if you hide the fact.
Oh my God, that's the worst.
Right? Today, that's going to destroy a business. Trust is a big deal, and trust needs to be earned. If a business focuses on consumer privacy, data privacy, data protection, and makes that an area of importance, makes that their core prime directive, so to speak, that company will have a competitive edge in the marketplace. There was a small cloud provider in the UK that beat the incumbent Google. Their claim to fame was data privacy. They made that a priority. France, I think it was a year or two ago, favored a small-time browser called Quant over Google. Again, because of data privacy.
Yeah, Google is huge in that category.
So trust is a big deal, and companies are starting to realize that this is going to be a big issue. So one of the global leaders in digitalization is called Siemens. We all heard of Siemens.
Sure.
They put together a collaborative of 17 global organizations into what they call the Charter of Trust. And what this is, it's a bunch of companies doing research into how to bring trust into a digital world. And they post recommendations of, like for example, companies must support patches and updates for the full life cycle of the product and things like that in order to make sure that any vulnerabilities are patched.
Right.
So my opinion about initiatives like the Cybersecurity Charter of Trust is that something like this has the potential to be the gold standard by which we measure companies against. Whether or not it's going to become the gold standard or not, that's my opinion here. But I think that I personally would rather do business with a company that declares and demonstrates that they take my data privacy seriously and makes it a priority than another company that's a maybe. So my basic message here is that a company that prioritizes their customers' data privacy will have a major competitive edge in the marketplace, because only then will they earn that consumer trust, and trust is that new differentiator in today's marketplace.
It's very interesting. What would you say about companies that already have a big foothold in the industry, for instance Google, and now there's so much coming out about their misuse of privacy? What do we do in that case where we as a consumer, I'm not going to say, I wouldn't say Google has maybe they do have a stranglehold on the search engine market, but I know there's something such as DuckDuckGo, which does a better job with encryption and making sure your searches are private and things stay private. Can we get people to shift to DuckDuckGo, or because Google is the standard, they're just going to be, I'm going to use Google, it's faster, it's quote unquote better, how do we get that shift when a company already has everybody's trust and it's hard for people, to change?
It's interesting you say that, because I myself was looking into other browsers.
Right.
I went back to Chrome.
Oh, yeah.
It's habitual. And look, we've all heard the stories about Facebook misappropriating data, and we all know it and we all use it.
Yes.
There are those diehards that say, "Oh, I'm not going on Facebook,"
right.
But the majority of us are still doing it.
Definitely.
So yes, the big companies have a little bit more of a buffer. There's a little bit of that forgiveness factor because of the familiarity, but that doesn't mean that they're completely invulnerable.
Right.
Someone could come in, another Facebook, I don't know, but somebody could potentially come in and take away that market share from Facebook. It's been known to happen.
Sure.
So, yes, they have that element right now because everyone's using them and there's no other platform, but that can change. I wouldn't, I wouldn't hang my hat on that.
Okay. Well, Avrohom, thank you very much for coming to me and speaking today. It was an absolute pleasure. You had some great insights, really fabulous answers to these questions, and I'll be sure to put up some clips on LinkedIn for my lovely audience here.
Thank you so much for having me. It was a real honor.
Absolutely. Thank you very much.